We start. So the session starts just now. So you can go on.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm pleased to welcome you to this webinar, which offers you an update on the actions of EuroGEO. Please let me introduce myself. I'm Isabelle Benizet, Geo Principal for France. We were supposed to welcome you in Paris today, but the corona pandemic did not allow to do so. But I'm pleased to announce that the EuroGEO workshop in Paris is going to be postponed between January 2021 and June 2021, and we hope early 2021, of course. Nonetheless, we welcome you today to this webinar to ensure the continuity of EuroGEO. I take this opportunity to list the main subject for France in EuroGEO. First of all, I would like to underline ICHEP's contribution to the EuroGEO initiative, especially on the user-oriented side and the development of tools that will support the work of the EuroGEO community. I'd like to highlight the importance of Copernicus as part of European contribution to GEOs within EuroGEO. We wish to encourage European contributions to the integration of Earth observation for SDGs and the support to the Space Climate Observatory. Eventually, in the context of the preparation for the Geo Week in South Africa, I would like to stress the importance of the actions that Europe can carry out for Africa, particularly in the context of Copernicus. I also would like to thank EASM, in particular Isabella Freitag, and Mines Paritech Thierry Ranchin for the organization and the technical preparation of this workshop. I will now give the floor to Astrid Koch from DG DEFI, in charge of international affairs. Astrid,
hello, everyone. Hello. Thank you very much, Isabelle, for this wonderful introduction. I'm Astrid Koch, working in DG DEFIS for the international dimension of Copernicus. And we all work together. That means DG RTD, DG DEFIS, and the member states to have a greater role in GEO and support the EuroGEO initiative. We give the data for the researchers and the projects via our full, free, and open data policy. And the data is available, as you know, through the Open Hub and the Copernicus DS for you to use. As you know, we're doing this now in virtual format because we have currently the current coronavirus pandemic. And of course, Copernicus and Earth observation can play a role to monitor the impacts, be it economic, environmental, and health impacts. So the European Commission, especially the EU Space Program, has now a dedicated website available on the Copernicus EU site. You're welcome to look at this. And last Friday, we had the race press event on the Rapid Action Coronavirus Earth Observation Dashboard. So I will like to invite you to look at the website. What is important? Copernicus Earth observation can make a difference, and you here as the EuroGEO community are part of it. So now I would like to give the floor to Gilles Ollier. He is the head of sector at the unit for climate and planetary boundaries, and the main person working on GEO with its team in DG RTD. So Gilles, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Astrid. It's very good to have you here today to represent the Copernicus program. I would like to welcome everybody participating in the webinar and thank the French Ministry of Research, the colleagues in the DG DEFIS implementing the Copernicus program, and our executive agency, EASM, for their support and participation in this webinar. We are specifically grateful to EASM for the organization of the event. Okay, Astrid already introduced me, so I don't have to do that. I would like to remind that EuroGEO is the European component of GEO, the Group on Earth Observation. It aims at developing solutions building on Earth observation to support more specifically the climate transition and the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development. The EC and the European Union countries are engaged in this initiative through the Framework Programme for Research and Innovation and Copernicus to foster the uptake of Earth observation application and services by users. So under the current difficult circumstances, this webinar aims to bring together the EuroGEO community to keep the momentum of the EuroGEO initiative and support the participants in planning joint 2020 EuroGEO actions to deliver end-user Earth observation application services and products. The webinar splits into two sessions, one from 10 to 12:35 this morning is about the EuroGEO initiative and the state of the play. And session 2 this afternoon from 2 o'clock to 4:30 is going to look at an increased role of EuroGEO as a solution provider within GEO. I should close here my introduction by expressing warm thanks to all participants who are following this webinar through YouTube and are coming from a broad range of organizations dealing with Earth observation, including research centers, companies, and also government officials. I would like to wish you all a fruitful workshop. And I would like to hand over to Isabella Freitag, who is going to provide us with more detail about the webinar. Over to you, Isabella.
Thank you, Gilles. Thank you, Isabelle and Astrid. I also welcome the next to 200 participants to the webinar. This digital workshop is a new experience for us, and we are very happy to test it with you. A word on the agenda. So as Gilles mentioned it, the webinar is divided into two sessions, the morning session and the afternoon session. On the screen, you can see the morning session. So this session is dedicated to the EuroGEO initiative. And we want to inform you of the main progress made around the environmental and Earth observation on one hand, and on the Copernicus and research and innovation perspective on the other hand. But it's also an opportunity to gather your opinion and new expectation from the EuroGEO initiative and to reinforce the cohesion of the European EO community. So 4 talks are foreseen with question and discussion time. I will explain you later how you can ask questions. So Jean Dussard will explain the progress of the EuroGEO initiative. Erwin Gore, the support from Horizon 2020 to EuroGEO initiative. A short question session will follow. And after a break, Thierry Ranchin will speak about how eShape is implementing EuroGEO solution. And Jan Rambourg will present the follow-up of the Canberra Declaration. Next slide, please. The afternoon session toward an increased role of the EuroGEO as a solution provider within GEO. So this session will explore areas where we believe Europe can make a difference in GEO. So 5 talks are in the agenda, 2 talks on the COVID-19 by Astrid Koch and Jean-Noël Thépeau. Then Geoff Sawyer will discuss how to bring the European EO services industry to GEO. Here also we will have a question session, and after a break, Marie-Françoise Voidreau will give us a snapshot of the European infrastructure and platform. Then Christian Kirchsteiger will introduce us the new Destination Earth initiative. We will end with a general discussion. So please be aware that the YouTube channel you are listening to is not the same in the morning and in the afternoon. And for your information, this webinar is a live webinar, but the speaker, the chairs and moderator use a webinar platform, and you are looking at a live web stream on YouTube. We thought it was the best option to avoid bug of the platform. For the discussion, we will use Slido. So I will show you how to connect. So on your browser, you type slide.do or slido.com. Then you will be directed to the screen. And the enter event code is EGW 2020. You join the event. Okay, and then you have to select the room. If you want to ask question for the morning session, you go there, and you can here type your question. You can type your question, but you can also like a question. And when you like the question, this question will be highly ranked in the list and will be then answered by the speaker. So I would encourage you to type question, but also to like question. So do not hesitate really to ask question. We really want a live discussion, and it's all from my side. I will give the floor back to Gilles.
Thank you very much, Isabella. So we are moving on to this first session now. So the objective is to inform the EuroGEO community of the main progress made around environmental and Earth observation on one hand, but more from the Copernicus point of view, but also to inform about the research and innovation perspective and the way it contributes to the development of Earth observation derived services and innovation action. It's also an opportunity to gather the EuroGEO community, to gather from the EuroGEO community their views and expectation from the EuroGEO initiative for the near future and their engagement into the EuroGEO Work Program 2020-22, and at the end to reinforce the cohesion of the European Earth Observation Community. So do not forget to send your Slido's questions. I would like to give the floor first to Jean Dussard, who is going to give us the state of play of EuroGEO. Jean is a policy officer of the European Commission. In 2019, he joined the Earth observation sector of the DG Research and Innovation in the Commission, and is leading the EuroGEO initiative. He has been previously 15 years at the Joint Research Center in ISPRA as scientific project officer. We focus on geospatial technologies and has been working in for the INSPIRE directive. Jean, over to you.
Thank you, Gilles. Good morning, everybody. It's my pleasure to be with you, even virtually, to present you the EuroGEO initiative, where we stand and what are the perspectives. This presentation comes, of course, at a very particular moment. So many things have happened. The context has changed so much in the last 6 months, with a new commission in place since December 2019, a number of commission priorities that were radically different from the previous commission, with a never seen before emphasis on the climate transition, some major highlights such as the European Green Deal, but as well of direct interest to the Earth observation community, the approval of the European data strategy. But in the last 4 months came an unprecedented crisis with the COVID-19, which will have, of course, a massive impact on our planet, on our environment, our economy, our society. The Commission, together with the Member State, has tried to cope with it the best it could, mobilizing massive budgets. And just a bit more than a week ago, the Commission issued its proposal for the next multi-annual financial framework, and quite innovative tools, the next generation EU, proposing to mobilize up to almost 2 trillion euro. This has an impact, of course, on all the policy of the Commission, which as well an increased understanding that research and innovation has a role to play, an increasing role to play in the reconstruction, in the recovery from the crisis. So the proposal for Horizon 2020, for Horizon Europe, sorry, has been increased. For example, to be sure not to wait for the Horizon Europe to be in place, the Commission is considering as well to issue after the summer Green Deal call, mobilizing yet another almost billion euro. And so with all those mechanisms, we think that there is an increasing interest and opportunities for the EuroGEO initiative to develop further. Can we go to the next slide, please? Now, what about EuroGEO? We consider that now it's a relatively mature initiative after 3 years of running. The work program that underlines and the initiative for the period 2020-2022 has been entirely co-designed with the community. It's currently under implementation. We will come back later in the presentation and during the seminar on some particular activities around EuroGEO. The community has been mobilized around action groups for developing pre-operational Earth observation service. The community has been mobilized as well to participate in contributions for the last GEO ministerial in Australia. Both Horizon 2020 and the Copernicus program have provided really the needed framework to be able to have the initiative to develop in the last 3 years. And important to say, and that was the reason that we were very keen to have DEFIS engage with us, it's not only a single standalone initiative driven by RTD, it's really a co-driven initiative that engages all the main actors of the space program in Europe. Next slide, please. So I mentioned that EuroGEO is part of the next GEO work program, along with all the GEO flagships, initiative, community activities, and regional GEO. So it's not the EuroGEO initiative is not a standalone initiative. We really have stakeholders, members of the community that are engaged in all the GEO activities, in all the GEO engagement priorities. It's important to say as well that it's not a frozen initiative. We would like to update the work program and be able to do it on a yearly basis. For example, to take into account the impact of the COVID-19 crisis, the impact of the Canberra Declaration that Jan will present later this morning. And I would like to invite you, by the way, to register in the same way to the GEO Symposium that will take place next week. You have the URL on the slide, and it will be as well, of course, due to the current situation, a virtual series of webinars, 90-minute session, about 10 sessions spread during the entire week. It's therefore, we consider that being part and engaged in the GEO work program is a unique opportunity to contribute to the implementation of GEOS and to foster as well the uptake of GEOS by users in Europe. Next slide, please. What about the added value of EuroGEO? Why do we consider that it's still worth to push and further develop the activities? We consider it's an incubator, a facilitator that helps, that targets the downstream part of the value chain, and that complements Copernicus and other European Earth observation supporting initiatives, including the ones at a national level. We have paid particular attention to make sure that EuroGEO was correctly referenced in all the Earth observation related to Horizon 2020 calls since 2017. And I think that another added value is that it brings together really a right range of actors from the Earth observation communities. And that's the EuroGEO project with about 55 partners that Thierry will present as well in a few minutes. It's a good example of bringing together this community. Of course, we don't forget that we need to collaborate with the other regional geos. We have to adjust to the new geo priorities, agree and set in the Canberra Declaration. But we want to take as well the opportunity that we have a well-established community to be able to better anticipate how the Earth observation landscape is evolving in terms of service, in trying to address the existing in situ gaps, trying to better integrate and mash up citizens or object-driven observation, ensuring as well, remember that we are a research and innovation directorate general, so the connection to science remains, of course, a key aspect. Next slide, please. What would be the directions for EuroGEO? Where do we want to go? We still have to launch, and I think this webinar is an excellent opportunity as well to collect your feedback, to figure out if we want to explore new areas, if we think we need to create other thematic action groups, for example, addressing more particularly Earth observation and Health. There have been repeated requests to include the security and safety aspect beyond just the disaster risk reduction aspects. Why not as well to consider, we have a number of European actors engaged in developing platforms and infrastructures. Do we need to better coordinate bringing actors like the European Space Agency, CNR in Italy, the DIAS, the European Open Science Cloud, all those the platforms developed by the Horizon 2020 projects. Would there be interest to bring together this community and try to have a consolidated view on how to further develop? We have to consider as well the long-term operation of EuroGEO. For the time being, since in the last 3 years, it was our Directorate General that was managing its secretariat. There are different options on the table that includes as well the uptake of the secretariat operation by the EuroGEO projects. We would like as well to open the debate on how we can better engage with the community and in particular the national and regional actors. And on our side, we'll make sure that the visibility of EuroGEO is guaranteed and is well implemented in the upcoming Horizon Europe program. And it's, if you refer to the partial general agreement that was adopted in April of last year, there are already reference to EuroGEO. I should invite as well the community to have a look at the anticipated partnership on agriculture of data, and that will certainly be a booster for the use of Earth observation on agricultural applications. And this closes my presentation. Next slide, please. And just one last, sorry, I forgot to mention this last slide on the structure of Horizon Europe. Of course, it's still a preliminary structure. We are working on the strategic planning. We are working on the first work program underpinning Horizon Europe. But you can already see that Earth observation is already well present, both in the cluster 4 and with the space program, and in the cluster 6 with a specific area of intervention on environmental observations. And you see the different topics that we intend to push forward. It's still in the making. Probably Gilles will say a few words, or Marianne, and we'll try to reply to your questions. But now I think I'm really at my last slide. Next slide is the last goodbye slide. Thank you very much. Thank you. Gilles, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jean, for this very comprehensive presentation about EuroGEO. Indeed, the EuroGEO initiative was launched as not a standalone initiative, but one of the avenues to explore the possibility to develop solutions building on Earth observation. And I think you described that very much. We should move now on to the next speaker. I would like to mention just a practical aspect is that I will take questions already after the second speakers. I will take some of the Slido questions after the second speaker. So now we are going to have a presentation about the contribution of Horizon 2020 to support the EuroGEO initiative. This presentation is going to be made by Erwin Gore, who is project advisor at EASM, our executive agency in charge of the implementation of the framework program and the projects in particular. He's working in the sector climate action, which is responsible for the implementation of a part of Horizon 2020 Societal Challenge 5, and more specifically, especially H2020 Work Program on Climate Action and Earth Observation. So the floor is yours, Erwin.
Thank you, Gilles. So together with Isabella, Gael, and Frans, we prepared this presentation. And I will, let's just, let me make it clear that we focus really on this part of Horizon 2020 managed by our sector Climate Action, where the EuroGEO projects are also part of. So there's, of course, much more support to Earth observation or environmental observation in many other areas of Horizon 2020, for example, the space goals and the development of Copernicus, but it's only this part where we focus on. Next slide, please. So if you see here, these are the several intervention areas which we cover. This represents all in total roughly 600 million of investments over the past 7 years. Earth system science, for example, you see that this is more R&D, really R&D driven, contributing directly to, for example, the IPCC reports. But if you go to the climate services, you will see that these projects tend to give really actionable information, marketable outcomes, really, which can directly contribute as well to the EuroGEO initiative. And which you see now with the green animation, although we have an intervention area on environmental observation, we of course see, and this is no surprise, that Earth observation, environmental observation really is part of all of the different intervention areas. And this is also why I want to give you a few examples of projects on climate service, for example, which have a clear link with EuroGEO as well. Of course, I need to mention that we still have in Horizon 2020 also, although Jean talked already about Horizon Europe, we have still some calls under evaluations, also some EuroGEO related calls. And we have, of course, as well the European Green Deal. Next slide, please. On the Green Deal as such, I will not detail as much. All the information, I mean, a lot of information is available on internet because last week we closed this stakeholder survey, stakeholder consultation. Yeah, all the information about the calls so far is available on internet. I just want to mention that for this community, maybe the most relevant are the topics on climate services and citizen observatories, and as well the ocean digital twin, which are mainly in area 9 and 10. Next slide, please. So if we focus on the projects on environmental observation, you see the list of projects here. Although EuroGEO, the initiative as such, was only launched end of 2017 in the Washington Geo Plenary, our EU support to Earth observation projects from our climate action sector has been constant over many years. So you see even that we have many projects, those with an asterisk behind their name have already finished. So, and they are really now having their results on the table to be further exploited in other areas. So there's a lot of material to build upon. Thierry will detail the eShape project, just to mention that NextGeos, which was discussed largely or intensively in the last year's event in Lisbon, comes to its final months. But I will mainly focus on the ones which are highlighted in blue, so the Verify project, and then 5 new actions we start right now. Next, please. So if we go on Verify, so Verify is an interesting consortium of 40 institutes, counting as well some inventory agencies, and it's really made to advance the methods for quantifying greenhouse gas emissions and sinks, so really to quantify more accurately the carbon stocks and fluxes of the different greenhouse gases in Europe, European Union. And if you look at the picture at the top right, there you see that traditionally, of course, what I also support is the bottom-up approach, so starting from the inventory data and try to estimate the greenhouse gas emissions from there. But as well, they now have a lot of focus on this top-down approach, where they start from satellite data, from in situ data, so ICIS is a clear part in this project, and try to estimate the emissions from there. So also to say that Verify, for example, also contributes to the design of this new Sentinel mission to measure atmospheric CO2. And it can and it will significantly contribute, for example, to geocarbon. So it's a very interesting project. They also have a lot of great scientists involved, which share a lot of information via Twitter if you start following them. And in the figure below, so for example, we see one of the outcomes. So they have this yearly synthesis for each EU country on the different, this is on methane gas, but you have it on the different greenhouse gases. And I just mentioned because although they are far from EuroGEO, let's say, as such, we see that they are dealing exactly with the same issues as we are all dealing with. So a lot of input data and how to make that output data more exploitable, visualizing it, also working with notebooks and so on. So it's technologically they are dealing with exactly the same stuff as most of us are doing. Next slide, please. So now I want to focus on the 5 projects, or the 6, I should say, which result from this call, the development of the Copernicus commercial activities and services using GEOS and Copernicus. Fire, I will not mention. It will be discussed by Josh Sawyer later on. This has started at the end of last year, but I will now present a slide for each of the projects which we start now. There's a lot of information in these slides. I will not read it all now, but the slides will be available after this talk for you as a kind of reference material, because the project, of course, have no website yet available, as they are just starting. Next slide, please. So first project is NextLand. NextLand is about midstream services for agriculture and forestry. So as you see in the slide in the middle, they are positioning 15 midstream services by different service providers. And these are then uptaken by several alpha users in the project, but as well additional beta users, which will come later on, to really combine these midstream services to solve an issue for some specific user. The focus is on the services on the one hand, but as well on the platform, so the NextLand platform, which is built, derived from or building further on the NextGeos platform, and which will be positioned not only as a technological solution, but as well to drive the business as a market platform, let's say, for the land community. Next slide, please. So the next project is Envision, also agriculture related, but this has a more focus on it's providing a fully automated, scalable toolbox of services for different business cases. One is, for example, the CAP. So they will address the environmental and climate requirements of the EU CAP, and therefore they have the paying agency, so the PA on the slides, as a user. But they will also, for example, focus on organic farming. So therefore the certification bodies, the CBs, are one of the target users to deliver, let's say, continuous monitoring instead of, let's say, ad hoc monitoring. So they really control the farmers by these tools as a support to the paying agencies, the certification bodies, but as well they will use the Envision platform to deliver a value add as well to the farmers. So this is another use case, and they will be open for other developers to hook in their services in a kind of open open API. So you see the list of products which I have at the bottom, and I have as well some of the users on board. Next slide, please. The third project on agriculture is VTGLs. It's focused on vine cultivation. So they will provide a decision support system to optimize sustainable vine cultivation using, as all the projects do, using satellite data, but as well in-field measurements. So here they will also have some drone campaigns over the vine fields, the grape fields, of course. And they will build, of course, on previous projects as well. And they have also the users on board. And so you see at the bottom some of the well-known Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian wine producers. What they will produce, you see it in the middle of the slide. So it's they focus on phenology, so the whole phenological models using a lot of data, but also on disease management. Of course, they will focus, optimize as well the treatments and resources and so on. And at the end, there is also the economic aspects, so the business aspect, as I call it here. Reducing further the pesticides, fertilizers, and so on. So 3 projects related to agriculture, and the 5th one, Thierry, is SAFERS. Please, next slide. Yes. So it's on forest fires. So as we all know, climate change, of course, leads to an increase in extreme weather conditions, both frequency and magnitude. And this, of course, has an effect on forest fires. And SAFERS is really addressing this issue by building an emergency management system, which can act before, during, and after the forest fire events. And they use, again, EO data, Copernicus GEOS data, and also a lot of crowdsourced information, as well as smoke detectors and so on. So they will, at the end, deliver 8 commercial services to different kinds of users. Also, for example, citizens are represented, so real end users in the system, and they will use artificial intelligence to all bring this together. And then the last project, Thierry, is something completely different. It's sustainable, so it's about fisheries, more specifically tuna fisheries, and make this more sustainable. So they make a cost-effective system to improve the energy efficiency of tuna fishing vessels. So they will combine advanced vessel monitoring, Copernicus data, and machine learning, and combine this all then to improve, for example, the detection of fish distribution, to save fuel as well by giving better route planning and so on. So at the end, to reduce emissions and to contribute to the Paris Agreement in short. So these are 5 interesting projects which are starting between now in June and September, just after the summer. Next slide, please. But I want to show you that there is even much more. So if you click once more, for example, on our climate service portfolio, in this blue bubble here, you see a lot of projects, some of which have really already delivered significant results. And they all have, so what they all do is all these projects on climate services, they all start from the wealth of knowledge produced on the climate system, and they combine this then to really actionable information for a wide range of users, for example, public authorities, but as well businesses and at the end citizens as well. So many of these projects deliver results, but I just want to mention as well that now in June, we are starting 3 projects resulting from the call Climate Services for Africa, which as well try to start from relevant climate data and climate data made available by Copernicus and GEOS, both of them, and create from there a dedicated climate service for Africa. So you see for each of the projects here, you see the region in Africa on which they operate, and as well they need to address several of the sectors. And for each of the projects as well, the sector here on which they operate is listed. So if you are active in Africa and in a specific sector, it's really useful to follow these projects and see what they all will contribute. But if you see to the project in this blue bubble, next slide, Thierry, then also these are really delivering nice results. Just to mention a few, because I could give a presentation of an hour here, but for example, the S2S4E project delivers a decision support tool as a kind of climate service to integrate sub-seasonal climate predictions with renewable energy production and electricity demand. And for example, they co-designed this service with Électricité de France. And so this is, without any say, relevant, for example, for the energy showcase of eShape. Also, Clarity, for example, is really focusing on climate proofing of vulnerable large-scale investments. For example, urban infrastructure, as you see here, there's an example on the heat waves in cities, in city of Linz. Clara is also mentioned here, so it's really starting from Copernicus climate change services and trying to build seasonal forecast and sectoral information system from that. And the last one, which I mentioned here, is the Pro Snow, something completely different, but it's really focused to the skiing industry, the winter tourism partners, let's say, the skiing resort operators, to really give them meteorological, for example, and climate prediction data for them to support their business. So I could mention a lot more, but just a few examples to illustrate that between the community, which you see really active in this climate action, this climate project, and the one of EuroGEO, we see that there's much more potential to collaborate and to build on each other's results and to enforce each other really with more experience and expertise. Last slide, Thierry. So I just wanted to mention another example. Jean already expressed the fact that we want to explore new areas in EuroGEO. He mentioned health and some other things, but as well, for example, on sustainable mining and raw materials, it's needless to say that we see a lot of use of Earth observation data there as well, and this in the complete value chain of this industry. So in green here you see some products which they use. Seismic quality mapping is, for example, used in support of the exploration. The other land service type and so on, they're used really in support of the operations of the mines. Land cover change mapping in sustainable development, and the last one, the VHR featured in identification, more for detecting illegal mining practice. And now in June this month, we start 2 new projects. It's not in our sector, but the sector next to us on mining and raw materials, Golden Eye and Greenpack. And they are using, for example, Golden Eye is using Sentinel-1 data, Sentinel-2, TerraSAR-X, combining this with Galileo positioning data and a lot of machine learning. And at the end, so you see the techniques, the data fusion, data analytics, machine learning. This is all the same as what we typically do, of course, in Earth observation. But we see, of course, that the communities, the people behind these projects are different, and it would make sense, of course, to also make the links to them. And the last one is Greenpack, that's more focusing really on the exploration of mines, in this case, the pegmatic resources. That's all. Next slide, Thierry. I think this is the concluding. Yes. So I'm open for questions now and give back the word to you, Gilles.
Thank you very much, Erwin, for this extensive presentation about the contribution to EuroGEO through the framework program. As indicated by Erwin, it is clear that we support already quite a number of relevant projects to EuroGEO that are helping to deliver solutions in various domains. You took the case of the vineyards, for instance, but there are many others, as you indicated. I wonder, because we are quite ahead of time, so I still can give the floor to some of the colleagues before I take the Slido questions, in case somebody wants to complete the presentation. Otherwise, we can move on to the question, the first question. But if somebody wants to complete the presentation, just tell me and you'll get the floor. Marianne, you want to step in?
Yeah, sure. I lost my own view now.
Please go ahead.
No, I just wanted.
You should introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, sure. I'm just trying to get. There we go. Trying to get my own view, so I see what the other people see. Yeah, no, not much to compliment. I just wanted to go a little bit into what Sean was ending with on the Horizon Europe process. We have been working on the establishing of Horizon Europe over, I would say, about a year now, where we mostly work on cluster 6 on the area of intervention on environmental observations to sort of follow up what we do now in the Earth observation area under Societal Challenge 5. Sean said correctly that it's really preliminary roadmaps for now, but just to give you an idea, we're thinking of topics around data, we're thinking of topics around citizens observatories, around filling in situ gaps, and climate services, and also on, let's say, lesser traditional domains, so domains, and just now having mentioned health as well, domains where we are not traditionally already using a lot of environmental or earth observations, but we think we can. We are really, we've done an exercise with the public, as you are probably aware of, last September during the RNI days and a little bit after with a public consultation. And we're now trying to wrap everything up in a strategic plan, and that will lead to a work program, which should be more finalized throughout the summer, I would say. Apart from that, sorry, I didn't follow the whole thing because I tuned in a little bit later. Has there been any mentioning about the Green Deal call, Jill?
Yes, Jean has been covering it.
Okay, then I don't need to say anything about that anymore. Okay, then I think that's it for me for now. I just wanted to give you a little bit more input on, information on Horizon Europe.
Thank you very much, Marianne. It's very useful. I think Isabella would like to clarify the process for the Slido questions. So Isabella, over to you.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to mention that when you ask your question, a moderator will read your question before making it public, and sometimes can send it back to you if the question is not clear, asking for clarification. So please leave the platform Slido open and look if we send you back the question to clarify. Regarding the question, we received several questions on EuroGEO governance on the Secretariat, so we merged them. And Gilles, as you can see on the screen, this is the first ranked question about the governance.
Yeah, if you if you allow me, I will step in for the question related to Copernicus. Where it is asked, what is the role of Copernicus in EuroGEO? I think it's a very relevant one. As it has been explained by Astrid, we have a joint venture with our colleagues in DG DEFIS, but I think if somebody can take the question of the connection between Copernicus and EuroGEO, and in particular, in which way EuroGEO could be useful to exploit Copernicus services and data without duplicating what is already done in Copernicus. We have Astrid, who could take this question, maybe Jean-Noël Thépeau as well, and also Jean Lussard. So Astrid, if you can step in for this question.
Hello, hi, it's Astrid. Yeah, the Copernicus role at the moment is the data provider and the services provider. As you know that the Copernicus full free and open data policy is supporting the projects and it's supporting with the dedicated products of the information products of the services, the EuroGEO initiative. That said, the EuroGEO initiative is is a great example of bringing Europe together to have a, I don't want to say platform, but a network of all European initiative working on Earth observation. And it was, I think, important to say that Earth observation worldwide is very important to tackle global challenges, but the European community can support what is currently at stake, for example, for the coronavirus thing. So it's an important opportunity to also showcase around the world what Copernicus and EuroGEO can bring as a solution for challenges, and that will come in the afternoon. But basically, the role is to provide the data from the complementary family of central satellites and our team of service providers. So that's it from my side.
Astrid. Yeah. Thank you very much. Jean-Noël, would you like to step in as you work in ECMWF and you're responsible for the climate services, and that in EuroGEO we refer several times to services. Sorry. Would you mind providing your input on the complementarity between EuroGEO and the climate services of Copernicus?
Yes, thank you. Well, I see it really both ways, because on one hand, what all Copernicus services are trying to achieve is to provide data sets on an operational and routine basis. So it's a resource that any scientist or any decision maker can rely on an operational basis. So it should be considered as an asset for all these research projects. But the second aspect, which I think is also very important, and perhaps we need to work on this, is how these projects that have been described can help improving not only the Copernicus core services, but also all the downstream services that will follow. So the the list of the projects that have been mentioned, I mean, some of them they did some great thing. I mean, I take the example of Marco, looking at the sort of the ecosystem of climate services and what could we do with this. But at the end of the project, what happens? You know, how do we take it up in terms of operational implementation? And sometimes this is not really well articulated. So I think we have to work also on the second aspect. So the first one, I think Copernicus is an asset or is a resource for research projects. I think is something that is being understood and that apply for climate services. But now the second aspect is how do we improve, how do we take advantage of all the research and innovation that is going to be done to improve the operational production. I think is happening, but needs to be fleshed out a little bit more. That's all I have to say for the time being. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jean-Noël. And indeed, the exploitation of the projects and the connection with the Copernicus process is quite an important one. Also, on the question regarding support, if EuroGEO would support contribution to Copernicus, if there will be resources from the Copernicus program for EuroGEO, it is quite straightforward, as the Copernicus is a big asset for developing services and products in Europe. Jean, do you want to add something on this, Jean Dussart?
Yes, thank you, Gilles. Maybe I could add that the complementarities between Copernicus and EuroGEO fall into the wider scope of GEO. Remember that from the beginning we flagged Copernicus as the main contribution of Europe to the GEO program, and by doing so, we have always worked towards ensuring that Copernicus gets the visibility it deserves, including outside Europe and towards a much larger community. Secondly, I would like as well to mention that complementarities exist as well in the drafting of the Horizon Europe program. We have put in place this co-design process where for each cluster of the second pillar, we engage with various DGs and service within the Commission and other bodies. And for example, in the cluster 6, and in particular of intervention on environmental observation, we have invited our colleagues from DEFIS to contribute to the design of this area of intervention. And the same is valid as well for the cluster 4, and in particular the activities related to space activities.
Thank you, Jean. Okay, I think we covered a bit the coordination between EuroGEO and Copernicus. So I would like to take another slide or question that came, which is more about the governance of EuroGEO. Well, as you know, it is quite a soft governance, avoiding to have too many structures. But one of the question is who is assuming the Secretariat for EuroGEO? So for the time being, basically, it is the Commission, but it is one option for the time being. But we may envisage other options, like that the EuroGEO Secretariat could be hosted in one country, or hosted by a European organization, hosted by a European project. So maybe I should turn first to Jean again on this point, but it would be good also to hear from Thierry Rangin about this topic. So Jean, I'm sorry, I'm coming to you again on the GEO Secretariat, on the EuroGEO Secretariat. Would you mind to remind the situation and the different options?
Thank you, Gilles. Yes, on the Secretariat, so up to now, the last 3 years, it has been run by our environmental observation sector within DG Research and Innovation. But we really are keen to have this, the operation of EuroGEO being not anymore EC driven, but to have the engagement of the entire community. So I mentioned in my presentation the options, and I think that Thierry can certainly complement what I said, that in the among the deliverables and the outcomes of the reshape projects, you have foreseen to discuss what would be the impact of handing over the Secretariat to another organization. But I have to say that we are still open to any other options, because of course projects have as well a limited timeline. So the question will come again in 3 years from now when the reshape projects finish.
Thank you very much, Jean. Can I hand over to you, Thierry, to complete what Jean said?
Yes, thank you, Gilles, and hello, everyone. Yes, in eShape, we are working, so it's a project that started 1 year ago, so we are in the growing activity preparation, and so we have this duty in our work program also to think about the future of this type of activity and about the EuroGEO Secretariat. We had several activity. I will present them after the break, so you will see where we stand today. But the idea is really also to work on the long run to prepare activities that will be sustainable and that can be a support to the EuroGEO initiative. That's our duty, and we will work on that. Today we are really preparing the anything and trying to structure our contribution, and we will be soon on position to propose some way of working with the Commission to organize this EuroGEO Secretariat. But of course, we should also think on the long run how it will work and how we can really support for all the Horizon Europe and maybe furthermore the activity on EuroGEO, trying really to focus on activities that are supporting the users.
Thank you, Thierry. I think we should move on to the next question, which is about the EuroGEO Action Group activities. Will there be further support and coordination of EuroGEO Action Group's activities? You may remember that we have been creating those action groups around themes, for instance, around agriculture or climate, to implement practically EuroGEO. And this is a question which is very relevant to this meeting today, because what we would like to achieve is to further the engagement of the EuroGEO community in Europe, facilitating the activities of those thematic action groups, so that, as I said initially in 2020, we can go for a few domains of application, of EuroGEO application, that we can demonstrate maybe at different events, in particular at the next GEO plenary meeting. So I would like to ask Marianne Van Merlo if she can update us about the action groups, review maybe the action groups we have created in the past, and maybe give us some hint on what future action groups could be put together.
Yes, thank you, Jill. First of all, because I think you asked me to introduce myself at the previous question and I didn't do that. So first of all, I'm Marianne van Mierlo and I work in the sector of environmental observations within RTD. And I'm working, among other things, on Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe activities, and then also the EuroGEO action groups. I'm afraid I don't have a cut and clear answer here, because we do see that the action groups are working. Not everyone as well as the others. We have 9 currently ongoing. We see that on different levels we're getting response back, or we're getting questions for communications and so on. We do feel also, especially thinking back 2 years ago when we started these action groups at the then EuroGEO seminar, so it's actually 1.5 years ago, but still, that we, or EuroGEO workshop, we feel that there's still enough body there to continue this and to work on different action groups. However, we have to still decide, and happy to take your suggestions on this, either by mail or in the chat or any other way, on how to continue now. We can do it by still doing it open like we have done for the previous session. We can do it by doing dedicated calls. Another option would be, for instance, to look at what are the main topics in the Green Deal and see how we can back on that. So we haven't decided this fully yet. I know this has been also on the agenda of the last EuroGEO coordination group, and it will probably have to end up there again before we take a definitive how do you say that, decision. But in any case, in this case, we are doing the EuroGEO initiative together. So I would be happy to also get your ideas and comments on this, and whether it would be better to do a dedicated one or to do an open one, or to maybe do a combination of the two. So before we continue on this, that would be the first question to ask. Is that, yeah, I think that's it from my side right now, Jill. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Marianne. Yeah, thanks a lot, Marianne.
Yeah, good.
Well, I think for the sake of efficiency and to try to cover the goals of this meeting, we would welcome that you send via Slido your comments about where this year we should concentrate our effort in order to develop together applications and solutions in which fields, etc. So that would be most welcome, and it would be useful for the outcome of this meeting. I would like to go for another question. Will there be support to EuroGEO in Horizon Europe? It's a bit early to say that, but I think Marianne has already indicated that we are in the programming activity. We are putting some of the keywords that would make that possible. But as you said, as you know, EuroGEO is in the making. Sorry, Horizon Europe is in the making. So we need to be a bit more passionate about that. Maybe if somebody wants to add something about it, I would welcome it very much. Either Jean or Marianne. Yeah, Marianne, please go ahead. Over to you.
Yeah, what I can say, and what we have been saying before, is with all of the projects we have had in Horizon 2020 since the start of EuroGEO, we made sure that this connection is there, most prominently, of course, with the eShape, but also with the other projects. And for me, it's quite clear that this is something we should proceed when we go to Horizon Europe. If we say that environmental observations is the area of intervention which is closest related to now Earth observation in Societal Challenge 5, and there we support EuroGEO, then this should be the case as well. So I'm expecting, but with all the disclaimers Jill just mentioned, but I'm expecting that if we continue in the way we are now, we will ask for the different projects to always have the link to EuroGEO in one way or another. It can be more or less strong depending on the topic, but if we work under the flag of EuroGEO, it makes sense to also, whenever there's projects coming out, to also make that connection. So again, with all the disclaimers that we are still under development, but this makes sense.
Thank you very much, Marianne. So I'm looking at the questions we have received. There is one about if there is some structured collaboration between EuroGEO and the GEO working group on EO for SDG. Maybe I should turn to Jean Lussard about this question. Jean, have you something to say about EO for SDG? And maybe if we don't have the response now, we can always reply after the meeting anyway.
No, I don't have the direct reply. I know the people in charge, and then it's driven by a NASA colleague. but I can investigate, and I will be happy to provide an answer on the collaboration with EO for SDG. Inside the EuroGEO communities, we have people, and I've seen that he was in the list of participants, Mark Noort, and I guess from the Netherlands, and probably he knows better than me how EuroGEO community might be involved in this working group, in this working group. On the questions on synergies between the different Horizon 2020 projects, I think that maybe Erwin can say something about your coordination meetings that you organize on a regular basis between all the project coordinators. Erwin?
Yeah, thank you, Jean. Yes, I can. So indeed, one of the things we do at the EASMO to support our project is organizing these kind of cluster events. So we bring regularly together projects together, which, for example, were issued from the same call or which work on the same theme. So specifically, for example, on these 5 projects which started now or which are starting now between now and June and September on the commercial activities, we will organize an event probably in autumn. So we hope to have the occasion of a physical meeting. So this is why we didn't do it so far. Bring together these projects so that they learn and what they are all doing and can see how they can collaborate, but as well bring them together, for example, with eShape, because as Thierry will detail after the break, eShape provides a lot of support to the Earth observation environmental observation community, I should say, where also these projects can benefit from. And as well, for example, the FIRE project, FIRE to coordinate, let's say, the European innovators in observation. So all these projects, let's say, which we think synergies should be possible, will be brought together. Of course, there are also other clusters events which we organize regularly. Also, for example, on climate services, we have these, and it can also come as suggested from the different projects as such. So yes, we will definitely do in the future.
Okay, Erwin, as we are coming to the end of this round of questions, I should almost adjourn this round of questions. There was one question about when the proposal for the Green Deal call will be able to be submitted. Okay, a lot of information has been already provided outside. I just can say that an indicative deadline for the submission of the proposal, but it's very indicative, should be around January, February 21. With that, I think I understand that we have a technical break from 11:15 to 11:30. So I would like to invite you to connect again at 11:30 for the next speech, next presentation. Isabella, did I forget something, or is it correct?
No, it's perfect, Gilles. You mentioned everything. So now we have a break until 11:30. You can still go on with asking question on slide 2. We will have one other big discussion at the end of the morning between noon and noon 30.
Does the broadcasting or the streaming continues to work during the break?
Yeah, we will just remind you that we will start back at 11:30. So it will go on the same channel for the moment.
Okay.
So see everyone in 15 minutes from now.
Thierry?
Yes.
Okay. So I think we start again this morning session after the technical break. I hope you managed to stretch a little bit. So I would like to start with the third speaker, with Thierry Rangin, actually, and who is going to present the eShape project, the eShape Horizon 2020 project, which was launched in order to support the EuroGEO initiative in its initial phase. So Thierry Rangin is currently director of the Centre Observation Impact Energy at Mines Paris-Tech. Is the director of this center. His current research interests are mapping of geophysical parameters for renewable energy studies, and climate and renewable energies. So Thierry, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gilles. That's my pleasure to present you some element about the eShape project. eShape means EuroGEO Showcase application powered by Europe. And I will present all the findings and all the progress of the project that started 1 year ago on the 1st of May 19. So as said by Gilles, our duty is really to support the activity of EuroGEO, and we had the impression that we are here also to shape EuroGEO and to progress with EuroGEO. You can see that we have a lot of media that allow you to find some element of what's happening in the project, and to read the stories we are working on, and to show the progress of the project itself. So this project is of course funded by Horizon 2020, and we have some inspiration. Of course, we are committed to progress to within GEO and with EuroGEO on the Sustainable Development Goals. We are catching these different goals that are presented here on the different showcase we have, and so we will see on our website that we are supporting all these activities and trying to progress also on the Sustainable Development Goals. Of course, we are also inspired by the Paris Agreement and by the Sendai Framework, which are the two big activities that are also part of the GEO commitment. And EuroGEO as an initiative within GEO is also supporting this. And so we have specific activity dedicated to climate and to disasters. To give you some fast facts about eShape, eShape is 55 partners, 7 showcase, 27 pilots, and it's a 4-year grant. And we are tackling today the different showcase that are on the back of this slide, talking about agriculture, health, renewable energy, ecosystem, water, disaster, and climate. So that's the key focus for the moment, but we are also trying to make the things evolve and try to build on what we are doing with this 27 pilot, and we will see that there is an opportunity for new pilot that will be announced at the end of this presentation. So our main objectives are to develop operational EO service with and for the user, which is really key for us. We want to demonstrate the benefits of Earth observation pilots in order to exploit Earth observation data and use them in the best possible way. And we want also to promote this activity and this pilot at national and international level, and really to tackle all type of markets, private and public. We don't focus necessarily on public, and we would like also to create activities that lead to business. And also, of course, we try to tackle with key user community, the one that are linked with the showcase, but also to try to open widely to the use of Earth observation in different other communities. So what we look like, we would like to enable on the long term the sustainability of our activity and of the different pilots, and really to support their Earth scaling. Today, one of the key issues is really to have a maximum of users of these EO resources and trying to promote them and try to really go on and to have the use in the best possible way of the Earth observation data which is available for all the users. And of course, we have also the duty to increase the awareness of the solution we are developing. And really, we have a lot of communication activity, dissemination and outreach activity. And you can go on the different media and you will find us. So I built this presentation as an answer to the one from Jean Dussart, trying to explain what eShape is doing to implement the EuroGEO solution. So I go back to what Jean said about EuroGEO acting as an incubator or facilitator of the downstream part of Copernicus and other EO activities. And what we aim to do in eShape, it's really developing a complete process to co-design, to implement, to uptake, to sustain, and to create awareness for the pilot. In all the activity we have specific work package dedicated to each of these themes and putting effort in order to include the users from the very beginning of the design of the service until the end, and promoting what we are doing in order to really uptake and to have a maximum of user of what we are doing. eShape is built on this way, but is also built on the idea of creating a big experience and trying to collect the strategic finding and to offer them to the Earth observation community on the long run. So what we want to do, of course, is to bring all the actors around the table. So that's the idea of EuroGEO, bringing a wide range of actors from the EO community. So eShape is really developed for and with the users. And today we have 55 partners and hopefully more soon. So we have opened a gate in order to be sure that we can continue to include soon some new pilots and some new partners in this solution. And we will try to share it with all the around. So on the collaboration with the other regional geo and to adjust to the new priority agreed and set in the Canberra Declaration that will be presented just by Jan Rembor, we are fully compliant with this declaration and we are supporting EuroGEO on this. And also we are trying to build some link with the other regional geo, linking that with some of the activity we have within the different showcase. So our result also will contribute to the private sector engagement of GEO. It was one, maybe not the question, but we are contributing to this working group on the private sector engagement, and what we are building, and that will be proposed in the afternoon by Jeff Sawyer, showing how we are going to build the things and trying to promote them in the community, will be also our contribution to this private sector engagement working group. So we have also in EuroGEO the idea of anticipating new EO landscape about services, in situ gap, citizen and object-driven observation and connection to science. And we are really fully exploiting all these elements in eShape, trying to build the new landscape and using all the new IT solution. And you will have a demonstration of this through the landscape of the different platforms that will be proposed by Marie-Françoise Voidreau this afternoon, showing the new landscape on IT solutions for developing services. So just to give you some progress about eShape. So eShape started on the 1st of May 2019. So we have achieved our first year, and you have some stories that are proposed in our website. But what we have done so far is the definition of a new co-design method dedicated to Earth observation website and services. So it's something that will be public soon after the review of the ES and the European Commission. And we experiment this with the 27 pilot and building on the feedbacks. So this idea of including new way of looking to the activity and to the development of pilot is really around part of the Earth of eShape. In the implementation, we start already what we call a sprint, and we are really evolving on that, trying to help the different pilots to implement some challenges, and we will go on through these things. There is also all the activity on the user uptake, the capacity building, and the liaison, looking to a strategy to have more user about all the pilots and all the EO data. Working also on the liaison strategy to have a real impact nationally, but also internationally in Europe and worldwide. And also work on what we call the maturity and the indicator expansion, which is a kind of concept that allows to have a readiness level of the for a country to develop its own Earth observation industry, and also the EO Wiki 2.0, which is an evolution of what is proposed by Earth on that. So about sustainability, also we have worked on an onboarding process. I will just talk about that after that, but also on some indicators, what we call the pilot exploitation and readiness level, which is a complement of the technical readiness level, in order really to focus on the potential of a pilot for the market and for its development. We built a first market trend observatory, and we are also working on a support package for sustainability of all this pilot. And finally, also we have this dissemination and communication strategy that have been set up, a website which is available, and also, which is very important in our strategy, an help desk that allows to have a connection for anyone and to ask questions, and we will have a feedback as soon as we can. It's I think less than 2 days, and the feedback to all the questions that will arrive on this help desk. Just before ending my presentation, I would like to inform you that we launch today a call for EO-based products. So the opportunity for new partners to join the consortium and to be part of eShape. We have reserved a budget which is 50K per pilot in order to have new partners and involve them in our activity. So you have the different list of the showcase here, and if there is a potential, we will open a new one. But it's really open. You can propose your new pilot whenever you want. It starts today and will end in September. So you have 3 months to build on that, to propose new activity, and we will be kind to evaluate them and to include 5 new pilots on eShape in order to have an increasing involvement of the EO community. And next year we will have the same type of call for new pilots. And here are the links that are really of importance for you. There is a page describing all the details about this onboarding process. You can just go on this and or find it directly from eshape.eu. And the help desk, of course, will be here to ask any question and submit any request. You will have to register as a new user, and we will be able then to interact with you and really to have an exchange and to support your developments and support your activity. So feel free to apply. We hope to have a lot of answer on that, and we will have 5 new pilot before the end of this year on board with us and going on. And I would like to thank all of you for listening, and I will answer the question after the next presentation.
Thank you, Thierry, for the big effort to bring EuroGEO to life, and also for the very concrete presentation. And you are just on time. So I would like now to go on to the next speaker, Yann Rambourg. Yann is going to make a presentation about GEO and the GEO declaration, which was adopted during the GEO ministerial summit last year. The reason why we have introduced this presentation in this seminar, it's because the declaration, in a sense, provide guidance for the world community in the domain of Earth observation. So Yann is working in DG Research and Innovation as a policy officer. He works in the Unit for Climate and Planetary Boundaries, where he works as a co-chair representative for the group on Earth observation. And before his move to the climate unit, he worked for 9 years in DG Research and Innovation in the unit on advanced manufacturing. Over to you, Yann. You are muted.
Thank you for the introduction. Can you hear me now?
That's okay now.
Okay. So as Jill mentioned, I will present to you the Canberra Declaration, which was endorsed November 2019 in Canberra, Australia. Next slide, please. So I suppose most of the viewers are familiar with the GEO Week, but for those people who are not very acquainted with the Group on Earth Observations, every year the Group on Earth Observations organizes a GEO Week, which is centered around their plenary meeting. And next to the plenary meeting, there is also side events, and there's exhibitions ongoing. And on top of that, every 3 to 4 years, there's also a ministerial summit where the ministers of the member countries are invited to give policy guidance. So the last ministerial summit, like GEO Week, happened from 4th to 9th November in Canberra, where the ministerial summit was on Friday, the 8th of November. There were more or less 1,500 participants. And EuroGEO was also very active and well represented at the summit. From the Commission side, the head of the delegation was Patrick Child, and there were also representations from DG GROW and the JRC. We had more or less 540 people present, 65 countries were represented, and we had 29 ministers or ambassadors present. Next slide, please. So if I can use a little metaphor for this declaration, let's assume that the regional GEOs are sailing ships, and that the GEO itself is the captain ship of the fleet. Then you can consider that the Canberra Declaration is your compass. So, and if you want to know where you go, you regularly have to check your compass to see whether you actually go where you have planned to go. So the Canberra Declaration is very important to GEO and should also be very important to EuroGEO. Next slide, please. So the declaration has 25 numbered paragraphs and it's divided in 6 sections. And all the paragraphs and sections have been endorsed by the ministers who were present on the summit. Many of these paragraphs recognize achievements and ongoing work, but do not appear to require specific responses. However, if you look carefully, you will see that there's more or less 12 items that suggest either new actions or that are pushing for increased effort in certain areas. I will now show you a few highlights of those 12 items that are asking for further actions or increased effort. So the first one is the declaration states that there is an increasing need to connect GEO to the work of the key global and regional economic cooperation forums. Next to that, the ministers also resolved to work individually and through GEO to encourage use of Earth observation in an inclusive digital economy that promotes sustainable economic and social development. It also encourages the GEO community and space agencies to make Earth observation collected from space ready for analysis and easier to use through artificial intelligence, data analytics, and visualization technologies. Thirdly, the declaration also calls upon the GEO community to develop a strategy to address the challenges of in situ data and to demonstrate progress in its implementation. Next slide, please. Then we go over to the private sector, where the declaration states that the ministers resolve to highlight opportunities for the private sector to leverage GEO's work and to encourage the GEO community to do the same. It emphasizes the need to create opportunities for small, medium, and micro enterprises to leverage the Earth observation. Next, it highlights the need for the GEO community to accelerate its work to build on the capacity of all countries to exploit Earth observations. It also considers how official development assistance programs can support greater use of Earth observations at all levels and across all sectors. And then as the last one for this slide, the declaration acknowledges the need for GEO to be proactive and responsive to members' needs for Earth observation that help them achieve their respective goals. Next slide, please. And the last 3 action items from that you can find in the declaration are the one which resolves to work to enhance collaboration between Earth observation and official statistic communities, also including the United Nations systems. The declaration also resolves to scale up our support for the delivery of GEOs and other elements of the strategic plan, noting the return to these investments delivered to our environment, economies, and communities. And then lastly, it calls upon the GEO community to redouble its efforts to communicate the value of Earth observation and engage more contributors to GEO's work. So next slide, please. So these were the items in the declarations which are really asking for further action and efforts. However, there's also other elements mentioned and highlighted in the declaration, among which, of course, the 3 engagement priorities of GEO, the Paris Agreement, the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And then it also welcomes the creation of the regional groups. And there's also, even though it was pre-COVID-19, it mentions the importance of the healthcare sector in Earth observation. Next slide, please. So as for the next steps, I'm asking you 3 questions. So at the executive committee meeting last March, there was a request to the GEO Secretariat to have a regular reporting on the implementation of the Canberra Declaration in the work of the GEO Secretariat. Should we do something similar with EuroGEO? Should we have a regular reporting to see whether we're still on course on the implementation of the declaration? I think Jean and Thierry already mentioned it, that the EuroGEO work program gets annually updated, and that they check whether it's still in line with the Canberra Declaration. And then maybe we can also, during this webinar, think about how can we link EuroGEO, which is more bottom-up approach, with a top-down guidance of the Canberra Declaration. Next slide. So you can find the declaration on the GEO website. I provide you here the link, and you can there read all the sections which I highlighted before in my presentation. And then the last slide, please. So I thank you for your attention, and if you have any question, I'm ready to answer them. Over to Gilles.
Thank you very much, Jan. Indeed, this kind of documents, declaration, are high-level guidance for the international community, but they provide a very good frame for the actions to come. When I see, for instance, the development of a policy for in-situ observation, it is strongly needed. We now coming. You were the last speaker, Jan. So I'm now going to go through questions. So I will take the first question and turn to both Erwin and also to Thierry, but maybe to Thierry first. And how is the private sector concretely involved in eShape? Because it is true that if you work on developing solutions through research and innovation, then at a given point, those solutions have to be taken in a very concrete way as product and services. And the connection with the commercial sector in this context is very important. Thierry, if you want to come on this.
Thank you, Gilles. In fact, the answer is two or threefold. First of all, we have some connection in the development of the pilot with a user that are private sector. On the second point, we have also some development which is achieved in collaboration with the private sector. This means that some of these partners are part of our partnership of the project, and so we have also a strong focus on the uptake and on the market development with one of our work package, which is dedicated to the link with the private sector and to the development also of sustainability of these activities. So in the idea, if the developer of the pilot is not ready to go on the market, there will be some potential to share this activity with the private sector and to involve them and to offer him to take the lead on the development of the market. So there are plenty of solutions, and so the private sector is really one of our focus in order to really develop a market.
Thank you very much, Thierry. Erwin, do you want to step in for this question as well?
No, sure, I can only confirm what Thierry said. So indeed, the private sector is, I think, very well involved in eShape, and also when, for example, the 5 new projects I discussed in my talk, also there indeed the private sector, also industry and as such is very well involved, and we do everything we can to further support them, for example, in the onboarding of eShape.
Great, Erwin. So I step onto the next question, which is about still eShape. Can eShape share a practical experience on using data platform such the DIAS platform, for instance. I think at the onset of the initiative, it was decided that EuroGEO wouldn't go for the development of a new platform, another one. What was decided is that eShape would build on existing platforms. So I wonder who wants to take this question. Maybe Thierry again. Can I give you the floor for that?
Thanks, Gilles. In fact, you will have this afternoon a presentation on a first snapshot of the different platforms that are available for the Earth observation domain. We are working currently on this action of connecting with the different DIASes and with the different platforms. We have a collaboration which is set up with ESA for using the TEP. We have also a collaboration with NextGeos, which is also continuing, we hope in the future, at least as an activity, and allowing to share also their platform. So within eShape, we didn't develop a new platform, right? But we are going to take advantage of all the existing one, exploring also the EOSC one, the European Open Science platform, cloud, sorry, all the cloud solution. And so Marie-Françoise will show you a first picture of what is happening on this domain this afternoon. And it's really interesting, and sharing this experience will continue on the future of our presentation and communication, of course.
Thank you very much, Thierry. Another question is about the contribution on how EuroGEO could support Earth observation related research in developing countries like Africa. I can cover part of this response maybe because there are a number of action group of EuroGEO which are very relevant for themes or problematics in Africa. But maybe I don't know who can take this question. Maybe Erwin, you can step on this, on the use of EuroGEO with regard to issue in Africa.
Well, indeed, we see that, for example, in eShape, there are some pilots who really focus on African users. For example, there's a pilot on towards Ethiopia on insurance index-based insurances. So let's say related to food security. There are others as well. But for example, we have some projects dealing directly on Africa. There is, for example, the Agriculturist project, who is really focusing on food security and agriculture in Africa. The Twiga project is doing similarly. So indeed, there are several projects dealing specifically on Africa. And I just mentioned as well in my presentation the new 3 projects which we start on climate service in Africa. Each of them being an investment of 7 million, if I'm not mistaken. So yes, there is clearly a focus on that. And I think to the South Africa, let's say, plenary, much more communication, let's say, possibilities can be further explored. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Maybe Gilles, I can add something about the next Africa European Union Head of State Summit that will take place in Brussels. It was planned to take place in October. And our GRC, my former GRC colleagues, in particular Paolo Ruggeri, are intending to organize a specific occasion during that, a specific event at that occasion during the summit on the importance of Earth observation. So that would come in just 13 years after the first Africa summit and the launch of the GMES in Africa process.
Thank you very much, Jean. So we have also a question which is related to the user dimension of the eShape project, and I think it goes beyond eShape. It's the user dimension of EuroGEO. Maybe I could maybe turn to Max Caglia at the GRC on this question regarding the identification of the users within EuroGEO, because it is indeed a crucial question. And my view is that each time we are thinking in terms of development that would address a given domain, we should really associate the users when developing the solutions. So maybe Max, if you want to say something about that.
Well, thank you very much, Gilles, for the opportunity. And good afternoon, all the participants. Indeed, the question of users is the one that is constantly on the mind of everyone that is developing this type of initiative. I mean, there's a whole multitude of users, but I think that's where, and traditionally we have, for obvious reasons, addressed primarily users in the research and scientific community. That is clear. Also because these activities are so strongly supported by the research and innovation budget. But I think that from the outset of setting up EuroGEO, there was a sense that one of the rationales that was really important was to make GEO as a whole more relevant to Europe, and in particular to key decision makers in the member states, and key policy decisions as well in both the commercial sectors, but also in the Commission. So the one of the logics, and this I think permeates all the regional GEOs, is really trying to become, if you want, the transmission belt between what goes on at the global level and what happens at the more local, regional, national level. And that is really something that EuroGEO has an important role to play. So from that point of view, one of the key set of users are therefore much more related to the policy dimension. And a clear one from this respect is all the policies that are related to the environment, or as we call it now, the Green Deal. That obviously covers many things, from the traditional domains of air quality, soils, waste, to then all this sort of kind of filière, all the value chains from production through consumption through environmentally safe disposal, through all the entire life cycle. And therefore there the potential users are both sort of policy organizations, as well as clearly the industrial and commercial sectors that are impacted and are prime actors of then these choices that have to be made, as well as civil society. So I think that this dimension of really sort of trying to then anchor back some of the projects and the activities of EuroGEO to these to the whole sphere of environmental policy, where let's not forget about it that Europe spends billions and billions a year to implement environmental policy, and therefore anything that EuroGEO can do to support this activity is a huge economic and social benefit, as well as an environmental benefit. So I think that all of these are activities and targets that we need to put into sharper focus in all the EuroGEO activities, and I think that we are starting to make some good progress, as we have seen from the previous presentations. Is that enough, Gilles, you think?
Well, it is just great as usual, you know, Max. No, thank you very much. And maybe I should turn to Thierry as well, because the question was even more precise, because it was about how in the EuroGEO pilots, how the in the E-shape pilots, how the users were selected or were engaging.
Thank you, Gilles. In fact, we choose a solution that was pragmatic when we construct the project. The idea was one user, one pilot, no user, no pilot. So that was the idea. And so by construction, we have in all of our pilot at least one user which is engaged in order to help on the co-design of the pilot, in order to really involve them during the whole duration of the project, and to have really a feedback from the user. That's the first point. And the second point is the fact that we have built in our approach to this the need to increase the number of users, and so we have a solution, and we have some action in order to involve the user and to increase the basis of our users. So I used to say that the E-shape is done with and for the users. So this means that they are really on board with us in order to follow up and to really be on the process of creating new value, of new activity around the Earth observation domain. And so it will be the same for the onboarding process. We will select new pilot that will have users. Those who don't have a user will, of course, will be less well ranked than the other one.
And Thierry, how many pilots are taking place within E-shape?
Currently, we have 27 in the 7 showcase, and we hope to have 5 more in the coming call, and 5 in next year, because we will have a second round, and we set up a jury that will select the new pilots, and of course all the new pilots are welcome, and if we cannot onboard them, at least we will try to help them to find their track in order to go on and to continue, even showing them that the action group are existing and that they can be part of them and continue to work in order to apply next year. But I think in the same idea we discussed about the EuroGEO Secretariat, and maybe there will be of interest to have such kind of process in order to have new pilots regularly and to increase the basis of services available to the youth.
And can you highlight a few of those pilots that in your view are quite prominent and would support the climate transition and maybe the European Green Deal, and maybe, for instance, starting with the one on renewable energy?
Yes, thank you, Gilles. On the renewable energy, we have a showcase with 3 pilots. The first one is really looking to what can be done to increase the use of renewable energy in the urban area. So trying to develop also the predictability of the energy in the coming days, in order really to have a production of energy very close to the place where it should be consumed. That's one of the pilot. There is a second one dealing also with regional forecasts for big areas in connection with with our colleague from NOAA, and a third one which is dedicated to wind energy, really to try to connect all these elements and to propose really services that can be used by end users, by the transmission and companies, the TSO, DSO, so the distribution and the transmission of electricity companies in Europe. But if the things are proved and showing the benefit to them, that will be possible to extend it. We even discussed with some people in Australia in order to see what can be done with them for the urban area. So we need to go on. We have a series of pilots in the climate showcase, and one will be close to be released online and available. There are things about forestry and how to manage the forest in a climate change point of view. We have also an activity dedicated to the Minamata Convention, for example, which try to help the countries to have feedback on the mercury, which is done by CNR and which is well known by the GEO community because it's a flagship also. We are also working with GeoBon. We are also some activity on volcanoes, on disaster. We have also, so there are so many that I forget fully of them. Some on water, on diving, the clarity of the water for diving. So that's really business oriented. We have, I should not forget anyone, and if not, I'll be shut down by all my partners. But at least we have all these activities around the table. What should I add on that? We have one which is with insurance and with food security in Ethiopia. So you see that it's really a wide range of activity, trying to really focus and to promote Earth observation use in the different domain, from renewable to climate, going to all the domain that I just shown in my presentation. And so you have all the detail on the pilot on the eshape.eu website, and you can explore it. And if you have any question, use the help desk and we will come back to you. You're mute, Gilles.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I have the sense that from the questions that we get from the attendance, that there are a lot of people interested in connecting with EuroGEO and eShape. And by the way, it's in a sense at the heart of this meeting today. So I don't know exactly what we can do, but it would be useful if those colleagues in the community willing to join eShape pilot or willing to join EuroGEO action groups could do so through the proper channel. So maybe I can ask you and Jean to how we can collect those goodwills in a sense. Thierry, please.
Yes. So you have a channel of communication which is open, which is the help desk of eShape, that will allow anyone to connect and to exchange with the team. That's the first link. But as presented also by Erwin, there is a series of projects that start or that are going to start soon. And I hope that in the near future we will be able to make the link between the different projects that was planned in the original EuroGEO workshop that we should organize in the next spring, I think, January to February, I think. So it's not really spring, but it will be hopefully in Paris with all the people present. So that we had the idea with Erwin to make a dedicated day to work together and to see the connection. And so the doors are open. The material we are developing will be made available on the long run. And so we are open to this collaboration.
Thank you, Thierry. Jean, you want to complete what Thierry was saying about how we can collect feedback for EuroGEO from this meeting?
Well, certainly feedback will come. It can still come via traditional channels, including via email, because as I mentioned in my presentation, it was repeated by Jan, a good way to bring together the community and to engage with new actors is via the EuroGEO work program. And I said as well that there is a need to update the current EuroGEO work program because it still ignores completely, of course, the new Commission landscape, the Green Deal, the data strategy, the impact of the COVID crisis. So we will have to launch a round of consultation, and I think that will be an excellent opportunity to strengthen the community.
Okay, thank you very much, Jean. I'm looking through the questions, and I think I've been through many. I don't know, Isabella, are you there? Isabella? No. Okay, I just want to make sure that I didn't forget any questions.
Sorry, I was muted. Gilles, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. I was trying to see if I forgot questions because I went through the Africa questions, I went through E-Shape, went through the private sector question, I went through the use of platforms. I wonder if there are still other questions.
So indeed, there are some questions about the private sector, but we'll have also a talk of Geoff Sawyer in the afternoon. And then there is one question regarding the statistic community. I think this was not really a reply. Or maybe how EuroGEO link to Eurostat and.
Okay. Yeah, and I think it's a very valid question because it's the usual question about how Earth observation can contribute to official statistics. Maybe once again, Max, I know it's a tricky one. If you are still there, can you take that one?
That's always an interesting question, but indeed, you know, sort of the collaboration between you know the environmental domain and statistics is one that always we need to strengthen. But we have made progress because, for example, you know, we have a group that involves DG Environment, the Environment Agency, Eurostat, RTD, and JRC. That really sort of on the kind of knowledge centers and sort of they have been working together. So I think that's also the you know we could use that mechanism to basically bring EuroGEO into that set of meetings and agendas, because indeed, you know, the moment that we want to be more relevant also from a policy point of view, it means that you know, any action that we take has to then be associated with what impact it has on whom and where. And so the where question, it's a good one for us to answer. But when you ask who this has an impact on, and what are the distributive impacts across society, then clearly where you need to have you know a strong collaboration with official statistics and with population distribution and its characteristics, etc. So that's why I think that there's you know a much increased role for this collaboration in the future.
Thank you very much, Max. And indeed, it was nice that you could remind us that the Joint Research Center is going to launch, in collaboration with the Copernicus program, a knowledge center on Earth observation, and maybe it's going to be the right place to have, say, calibrated data and information accessible that can be used in statistical work, and that can be used to feed in different indicators. I have a question which is more general, because Erwin has been presenting a number of projects, and I think one question came about how can I have access to those projects or projects outcome. Maybe Erwin, if you can come on this.
Yes, I could comment. Thanks for the question. So indeed, there is the official CORDIS website. So if you Google the project name and then CORDIS, CORDIS, then you come to the CORDIS website for this specific project, where you find, let's say, the summary of the project, what the objectives are, but as well all the partners involved, and also the call from which the project was originated. And then you can even see all the projects funded within this specific call. So that's one source of information. Second source, of course, is we take care that all our projects have, let's say, an obligation, all Horizon 2020 projects do have an obligation to communicate and to disseminate. So this means we also ask them to set up a website. And of course, for the new starter project, this is the case yet, but for the ones which have been running for a few months, this is the case. And this is also for me, and let's say, I would like to take the opportunity to ask really our projects to take care that indeed this information on the website is well structured, is providing good information, and maybe, if possible, even tailored towards your different stakeholder types. So if somebody, it would, for example, be ideal if somebody can really filter what information is looking for and then be directed to the different information. So it's really key that you have a good website, because we as EASMA and also DGRTD, we can nothing do but just communicate about our projects. But at the end, people will simply Google and arrive either at CORDIS or at the project website. And then thirdly, of course, as I mentioned before, there are the cluster events which we regularly organize. And this is also a very good opportunity to learn more about the project. And then finally, if I may have 1 minute, of course, this kind of events is also key in this. So today it's a virtual event. We are a bit handicapped by the fact that we miss a bit this networking aspect. But let's say for sure, early next year, we will organize a next EuroGEO workshop. And there always we ask for the participants when they register whether they want to have a presentation. And indeed, that is open not only for projects which are fully involved in EuroGEO, but it's open to everybody. And we will also intensively search for getting projects on the table who are not really familiar with EuroGEO and shape the links between the different projects.
Well, thank you very much, Erwin. In any case, I would encourage the colleagues following the YouTube broadcast to come to you and EASM if they have other questions, and to come back to us if there are questions about EuroGEO, and we are accessible. I think I'm going to take the last question. I think Thierry and Isabella, the session is coming to an end. So the last question is about how France is involved in the EuroGEO. So I don't know, Thierry or Isabelle, if you want to step in for that question.
I think Isabelle will complement the answer. But We are participating to EuroGEO activity in different way. So France has answered to the action groups, and so there are some partners that are in the EuroGEO work action groups, so participating to this. We are also part of the program board and acting in different working group. France is involved in most of the working groups that have been set up by GEO, I think 2 or 3 months ago. And so Isabelle collect all the element and send the contribution to France to GEO, and then to support also the EuroGEO activity. And we are also, I think, part of the EuroGEO coordination group, acting also there. And Isabelle can complement because she had a lot of activity related to Copernicus that are also helping EuroGEO activities and support their activity around this. This year it was planned that we organize the EuroGEO workshop, and due to the COVID, we push a lot with the Commission in order to organize this webinar in this special event online, in order to be to help on the connection and to continue and to avoid to lose the momentum, which is starting with EuroGEO and trying to push that. And of course, as I'm French, I'm coordinating eShape, and I'm pushing also a lot on this direction. So Isabelle and Benezet, if you want to add some more.
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry, my microphone was cut up, but I think your answer is quite good, Thierry. Maybe what I want to add that it's indeed we are a lot involved in Copernicus, and we will are very interested and pushing about the role of Copernicus in GEO, and especially in EuroGEO. I'm also in the Europe team in the XCOM, because I'm now participating to the XCOM with the European Commission and Italy too. And we are strongly supporting the activity of EuroGEO in SDG, as I told in my first intervention. And finally, I can add that we support a lot the action of Thierry Rangin on eShape and with EuroGEO, because we have the feeling that it's an horizontal action that interested every users on EuroGEO, and also the link with Copernicus is very strong. So it's a kind of action we support strongly. That's all for me.
Thank you very much, Isabelle. I think with the time going, I should adjourn the session. I would like to thank all the speakers in this session for their contribution. I would like also to acknowledge the participation of many contributors via YouTube. I think we had at a given point more than 100 people attending, so it's great to have you all there. And I give you, so we are going to reconvene at 2 o'clock for the afternoon session at 2 p.m. And this is going to be Max Kraglia who will chair the afternoon session.
So,
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Isabella.
Thierry, you're going to interrupt the broadcast?
Yes, the broadcast will be stopped just after the end of the session, and we have a new channel for this afternoon take care. It's not the same address, and we hope to see, but at least to have all the attendees back at 2 o'clock with the new channel. And don't forget to ask questions on Slido if you wish, and we can complement on the discussion of this morning, or to add new questions with the new speakers. And hopefully Max will be able to manage all of this. Thank you very much.
Are we still broadcasted?
Yes. So I'm going to stop it just now. Bye-bye, and have the next presentation in a few moments. So be on time at 2 p.m.
And enjoy your lunch in between.
Yes.
Because maybe we can stay a minute.